You know what this looks like?
Death.
Work.
Not my work.
Well, hadn't intended to make content on this, but looks like we're going to be rebuilding Cat's L67 Supercharged daily. Believe it's spun a bearing in the bottom end or something along those lines. It's started squeaking and knocking in the bottom end, so I spent the night unbolting everything and getting everything ready to pull out so that we can actually pull it down and assess how much it's going to need. The plan is at the moment, hopefully we can just pull it down. The crank's still good and all the balls are still good. It's nearly 300,000 Ks on it. Hoping pistons are good, all that, and we can just give it a hone, re-ring it, fresh set of bearings, maybe get the crank polished and all that good stuff. New oil pump, new seals throughout, and hopefully should be good for another 300,000. Alright guys, here's one of the biggest little tips for these motors is all your fuel lines are sort of a hardline push lock fitting, which you can get a proper tool for them, or you can do what I did. I got it's like a caulking gun nozzle from a Sikaflex tube. Get that, cut it down, put a slit in the side of it so I can just pop it over the line. Obviously make sure to pull your fuel pump fuse and crank it over and make sure you get rid of all the pressure that's in the lines, otherwise you'll end up spraying yourself in the face. But for these, you just push it in like that, and sometimes you got to spin it around in case you accidentally get your little groove in there, and off they come. As you can see, they got a couple of little tabs that lock onto this lip here, and this just sort of pushes them off so you can get the line out. And as well, if the one you're doing it on happens to be auto, just remember, because they're a V6, they're probably an auto, easier to just pull the motor directly straight up and out. Well, I think anyway, I haven't tried yet, but just remember your auto transmission dipstick is bolted to the back of the head. So remember to undo that or you're going to make an absolute mess. Alright guys, well, motor's out as per usual. I forgot stuff on the back of the motor, but it's what it is. It came out pretty easy really once I undid the things I forgot. But workshop area is all set up and I can't really order any parts or find out what it needs until it's torn down, so we'll just crack straight into it, and anything that I feel you need to know, I'll take it off time lapse. Alright, so for around the water pump, they've got double pulleys. I don't know if it's the same for like an Ecotech, but it is for an L67. That one's just kind of sits on. That one's bolted through there with a T45 Torx bit. Get that off, you can pull this off. But make sure that you've at least got this bolt still left in your water pump. Otherwise it's near impossible to get this one out. As you can see, it's very thin and the hex head in it strips out really easy. So you really want to keep the tension on the water pump so it's not on this bolt. Otherwise it's a pain in the ass to get out and you strip it like I did. Just a cheap SPC claw type, sheep foot type one. Sheep foot. Chicken foot. Chicken foot claw. There's 3 bolt holes. This sits here and presses against it, against the good. Alright, for removing your harmonic balancer. Now, for getting your harmonic balancer off, use
A sheep's foot.
Okay, alright. Alright, for getting your harmonic balancer off, you're gonna need a puller of some kind. I never trust the claw ones because they always seem to take a chunk out of the back of the RB30 harmonic balancers because they're all cast. I don't think you'd have a problem with these ones, they're a lot more of a solid item, but you can get them in kits. You go for your chicken's foot one. Don't even like. Which comes with a range of bolt sizes which never fit anything. But anyway, I went down to Bunnings and you can pick up some nice little thin ones. Just, I can't remember what the size is, so just find some random bolts that you got to find the thread. They're real thin. They work for this and they're the same ones that work for the RB30. But yeah, you'll have to just source your own bolts because those things never have the right size. But basically it just sits against it. You tighten these in and then you put something on there, crank against it and it pulls the harmonic balancer forward. This is about the best angle I could get for you. I lost my second tripod, so with removing all your rocker arms and that, so this is probably not as high a stress because everything seems to be steel, not alloy, but good practice is to stagger the way you unbolt them. So I'll pick a start point, usually second in from one side, and then you go every second bolt, and then you go back to the start, to the one you missed, and go through like that. And you just undo them, start off at half a turn, then go little bit by little bit, working along the same pattern until the whole assembly is loose, because this one's going to be under different tension to this one, and so on and so forth. So if you just try to start undoing one fully and then another fully, you might crack that block that they're bolted down to, and obviously you really don't want to do that. So I'll chuck this on a bit of a fast forward and I'll start cracking on getting them undone. For removing the head, I'm going to do exactly what I did with the rocker arms. I'm going to stage how I undo them. These have 8 bolts, so what I'll do is I'll start at the one in the middle. I'll start there and then I'll spiral out from that. And then I'll slowly do all the way around, half a turn each until they're all loose, and then I'll just spin them out one by one and pull the head off like that. Use the shaky hand cam video, but so far bores are looking pretty good. But there's no obvious scoring I've been able to see, and there's no heavy wear on it. Like you can see the point where the piston stops there, that little dark ring. There's no obvious lip, so I think we're gonna get away with just a hone on it, but I'll wait until I can see the full stroke of the bore before I decide on whether that's okay. It's not going to matter for my application because it's getting pulled fully down, and we're doing a full rebuild. But if you guys are doing the timing on an L67 or even an Ecotech or a Buick or whatever, there's a little dimple pressed into here. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And there's one up here on the cam gear itself as well, crank and cam gear. They need to line up, and then underneath this gear there's a dimple on the balancer shaft gear, and there's a dimple on the drive for the balancer shaft behind the cam. So we got to about cylinder 6. There was a couple of little spots that were definitely showing wear on some of the other rod bearings, but cylinder 6 has definitely got the most. It's not spun, it's definitely not spun, but it's definitely not, I don't think it's happy either. On the big end bearing of cylinder 6 on the rod side of it, you can very clearly see that as long as the camera focuses. There's definitely been some wear, excess wear on that bearing. Alright guys, well that was my big struggle with getting the main caps out and getting the crank out. Turns out 3 out of 4 of them are actually 4-bolt mains. If you're doing an L67, there is bolts that go through the side of the block like that go into the sides of the main caps on the front 3. 2 of which on either side are actually under the engine mount. See there? Dirty big flat spot in the top of one of the lifters. So I'll pull all them out and we'll check all them. You can see the bottom of the lifters from the cam channel running through there. I tried to flip the motor to take them out and one of them fell out. So what I'm going to do is get one of the spare push rods, poke it up from the bottom and actually push them out that way. That way I don't lose them when I flip it over. If you guys are doing this at home on your one of these or probably any other push rod type motor, undo your lifters and lift them out first before you take out your cam. Probably a good idea. Oh, I broke a thing. Happy to try and put there. Hopefully you can hear me alright, but this ended up being the only issue I could really find was this lifter, which I'll give you a closer up of it because other footage wasn't the greatest, but you can see how badly worn it is. These use they have a retainer bucket sort of style, which you can see it's got like a square notch out in it, and that lifter kind of sits in there and that guides it, stops it from turning. But in some cases, as these just get worn and everything like that, these can spin, and when they spin, that roller there runs sideways on the cam, chewing out the lifter and chewing out the cam. That's how a cam lobe should look with some age. And then there's this one, which there's a noticeable lip in it. So that on both sides, quite badly worn, and it's real rough to the touch. But yeah, it's a new cam job for it. Which, lucky enough, one of the perks of living in Brisbane, you can always find something close. Alright guys, well I'm going to sort of start to wrap things up here. As you can tell, the tear down of the motor was very rushed. I was just pushing to try and do it. You can see partway through the video just how tired I'm getting. I can't even talk. I was working on this thing from like 7 o'clock one night all the way through until about 11 o'clock the next day. So I was unbelievably tired, but it was a big rush so we could find out what was wrong and actually get the ball rolling to get it rebuilt and back together. but it should be nice and reliable for a long time once we finish doing this, so it's all good in the end. But yeah, if you like this video and you want to see more, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. The interaction goes a long way towards growing the channel. And if you've got any questions or you just want to come have a chat or check out some photos from some other stuff I've got going on and photos from drift events and all the rest of it, check out my Instagram, which I'll link below. It's just Tokimotive as well. And yeah, thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you in the next one.